Hey, my name is Scotty, and in this tutorial I'll show you how to sketch flowers using my loose ink and watercolor sketching technique. So we're going to start in the top left hand corner here and make our way around the page. Start with the main shapes, the big shapes here, and we're going down into the detail, and we'll add some really nice loose watercolor on top. So to start the sketch I'm going to use dots to set the width. So yeah, I'll put a dot here, so it's at the top, roughly at the top there of the flowers, and then over here. So now I have set my width, and let's put a dot in the middle here. It just helps us find the center line. And then to find the height in proportion, I'll just put my fingers on the width of the flowers there on the iPad in front of me, and then I turn my fingers and it's roughly the same width as the height, and it's approximately there. So if this is halfway there, the vase will come just to there, and the height is approximately the same as the width, and we follow down this way, come around and down to there. Now along the bottom, a slight curve on the bottom, and now we have the bottom, the first shape. Now the second shape I'm going to do is these flowers here. So they go reach right up to that top corner and cut across this vase here, and I'm giving it lots of interest. Big leaf there, and then a little one, and then this green leaf. Okay, we're making our way up. Big leaf that sticks up there, and it comes down and then around there, and do this next shape. Pause there to have a look. Might add this in separately. Now the details. We've got those three big shapes. We can go into smaller shapes like this leaf that comes across here. So up here, just following that general shape, that in there, and the leaf comes out. Buds in the background. Now after the main shapes we can go into the details. So in these sections here, a big tip is not to draw little tiny leaves one little line at a time. Try to keep it in one line segments. That means when we're doing these petals of this flower here, we start around the outside and we make our way in one line, twirling our way into the middle but zigzagging back and forth. And follow some of those contours of the petals in. And then here, when we're going in, and now they're much more dense. So see how I'm going back and forth in one line? And as I go back and forth, I'm creating little petals, and they're getting closer and closer together, but they look really loose and interesting. Impressionistic line work, it's so fun. Really close in the middle. Then some texture. We could add little dots here because it's that sort of a vase. Now we're moving on to this bunch of flowers and leaves. It's very, very complex. So how are we going to do this? Same approach, even though it's more complicated than this one. Do 2 dots for the width. So I'll put the dot here and then halfway again. Now in this example, if I measure the width, it's just generally the width of the main shape of the flowers. If I turn roughly to the bottom there of the vase, but without that little stand at the bottom, and I'll measure down to there, a little bit less than halfway again. So that's halfway between the height and the bottom, and go down. Now I'm just going to add that width in. It looks a little bit narrower, but 2 dots. So let's start again with that main shape. So let's go around and concentrate on making this nice and round, even if you miss the dots. Just using my dots again, create that width and a circle. Okay, we have our vase. Now let's move on to creating the total outline. So I'm not going to do each little shape, just do the whole outline here. The shape, so there's a leaf here, goes in and around a flower. Because flowers aren't in proportion really like a face or a building, you can get away with it being different. Now the red flowers are really important to get right, so making sure they're nice and big even if they're a bit out of proportion. Now we've finished the whole main shape and we can go into the smaller shapes. So I'm looking at those red flowers, they're really important. So I'm going to put those in first. So add a second one there, and I'm just going around the outside and then around here. So now I'm looking at the reference without the red lines because there's just so much detail there. And then one here. Now these yellow flowers on this side, let's add those in. I like that it has these little citrus, so add in some circles nicely. Now the purple, we make sure we can see those. Some up here. Now the green leaves, we can add those in, and now we just need to add a few, just a few. The next step is to put the detail in the roses and go around and make our way in. So big petals on the side and then back Now let's move on to these. So first we'll set the height and then a dot down in the bottom here. Now grab that height, that half, and move up slightly because we want to divide this into 5. If you've got 5 spaces there between here, so I'm going to go around the outside here like this, but then go in, and then on the last one we can go around and circle that middle bit and maybe make a little dot right in the middle, and then it goes in the next one and then in and the little one there. The last one onto the right. Okay, we've got the main 5 flowers running down the stem. We can add on the secondary flowers. Now the stem down the bottom. There's a flower there. So we go up and draw segments. So draw this segment first. So it means that this will sort of change because you're building them one on top of the other. Sort of zigzagging my way, so it's bending. And then right at the top we have lots of little ones. Alright, really happy with that one. Now let's move on to the next flower. Okay, next we're going to do this water lily. And this is actually one of the most challenging flowers we're doing because the petals are so geometric and exact. Some dots here at the top, and we'll just draw this top section and then we'll draw the bottom section of the leaves. That'll be my width there at the top, and right between put another dot there. So that half of that width we come down again, so measure that if you like. So we'll do this shape here, and there's a little bump here where there's other petals. And now we go across the top here, go up, some are a bit thicker, up and then down to that point. So we have that rough shape, like a little cup shape, about halfway, so put a little dot there, measure that height and go down. At an angle here, put a dot there, following a similar curve, and then back down, like that, and then there's a thickness, so I'll go back. So we'll grab that width there, and then across, put a dot there, back down, and then back up again, in again, right to this point, around this bottom side to the dot. And so you can go slowly on this one, let the lines kind of wobble, and back for the thickness. Just a bit past halfway, there's that first middle one. I'm going to draw that first because it's in the front, and then we can make our way back. Out this, make sure it's nice and curved, one line, and then back up to here, another thickness, bridging the gap between the two. There's a lot of them. So now we're going to move on to these irises. The way I think I'll do this is by putting little dots you can see in the reference at the top of the stems. I'm going to put one here, and it's okay if they're not the same. Now why don't we just do the stems first like this, and then that will help us see where they should go. It's like a little leaf that comes off that stem. Now this one here is right in the middle, comes like this, the little yellow bit. And then the side ones, we have one coming out this way, so follow that shape. I am realizing that I'm running out of space here, and I should have made them a little bit lower. So this one here, let's actually bring it down, and it has this side. It will come like this. Hopefully yours will fit. You don't have to do this exactly. Up there like this, just following those shapes. So we're going to be adding watercolor over the whole sketch page. So I have my permanent rose, stroke here and here. See how much white there is, showing where the petals are, but leaving a little bit of white. And the strokes are more concentrated in the middle. We also want to add pink to this, the lily, water lily down here. There's another light one here, but now I'm leaving a little bit of gap. I'm just going to add strokes on the petals that are lighter, and then I'll leave this to dry. We're going to use alizarin crimson for these flowers, so roughly putting those in those shapes. So that's a green leaf on that side on the right. Without anything here, there's a leaf here, so just this bit is a flower. I have cadmium red. Now we have to paint the roses in. So just a stroke on each one, and that is way too much water. I'll get my paper towel back. Red rose there. And one more, I think this one's hidden under there. So cadmium yellow. Okay, so once again the same idea as this one here. We're just stroking the colours through. There is a flower, where is it? Is it this one? Little tiny flowers here. Right, now I'm going to move down back to the lily. Now I think that's all dry because it's just been enough time. Add yellow in the middle. On the ends of these. See, this one doesn't have one on the reference, but I'll put one in anyway. So get more permanent rose, make it a bit darker this time. Paint will run down. It's a dark one there. And we'll start with sap green, almost like if you painted it in perfectly and then you shifted the paint layer slightly to the right. And we have a leaf that goes up this way, corner underneath. And the same thing, you can add Viridian green, and that leaf there could be darker, I think. Let's start there and go down. Just in the leaves, but leave white gaps. On this side here, leaf down here. Now for those flowers, we'll use dioxidine purple. Slap on these colours without worrying about going over the red. There, and I'm just seeing where I've done some flower shapes. These flowers do have a little bit of purple in the top. Now let's bring them down using my ultramarine, bit of Payne's grey, a yellow ochre. Leave strokes in white there, like that. See, let's add some leaves. Leave that white between it. Add a bit of Viridian green to some of those sap green leaves. And see these petals here, we're going to make it look like it's darker in the middle. So I'll start at the top of each flower, just there where we impressionistically, there's lots more denseness in there of pink. Dark spots going around the middle. And then we hold our fingers like this and we aim at this little bottom bit and let's tap it against our finger. Vibrancy of colour, this contrast. Just small sections, like it doesn't have to cover big parts here. And then that combined with the white bits, the light bits and the dark bits, it gives it that depth and interest. Some blue strokes that stand out more. And there is orange in there. So see how that stands out nicely. Ends of the petals, it just looks a little bit more saturated, doesn't it? So now I've let that dry and now we can add shadows. So I use Purple Lake as my shadow. You can of course use any shadow color that you prefer to use. Like just a stroke here, there's a shadow in there, the depth that we want. So just between the flowers, across the stems. So just like that on this flower, one here, and this leaf here will go there. And I'm creating these layers of transparency. Just going to add some shadow. Now I have my Uniball Signo pen for the highlights. In here we have lots of dark areas, but there's no light in there anymore. White little lines there. Not every leaf has to have it, it's just, some will just be dots around these flowers that could have given it more space to breathe there. This purple, really dark in here, so that'll need some highlights. And maybe across here. See how the middles are quite bright, reflecting the light. And in here will help because it's so dark, but it has some reflections. Highlight just running along the top, maybe around this edge here. So that's how I sketch flowers with ink and watercolor in a really loose way with all those dynamic lines. If you want the full version with none of the cuts, it's a very long tutorial. You can join me on Patreon for that, where you get all the references and that tutorial with a template as well that might help. You also get my whole library of full tutorials there on Patreon, access to everything, and a community where you can share sketches and show me your work. Otherwise, there's another tutorial right here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.